Welcome, everyone. This is our rally to launch our new campaign Pledge for the NHS, and we are so excited to see you here this evening. Thank you for joining us. My name's Kat. I am the director of We Own It, and I'm here with John Bosco, Imogen, and Matthew, and our excellent speakers, who you'll be hearing from very shortly. You're all here because you believe in the NHS, and we're so grateful that you are giving up an hour of your time on a Thursday evening to join this call because you have the faith to fight for the NHS. So we will be getting going very shortly. Just letting everybody hop on. We Own It campaigns for public services for people, not profit. We believe public ownership is popular, that it works, and that's what we need for all of our key services: water, energy, rail, buses, Royal Mail, and our NHS. Thank you for being here this evening. We are really grateful that you are joining us. Please do feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat. Let us know where you're joining us from and what you're excited about with this campaign. Hopefully you received an email, if you're on our newsletter, telling you about the launch of this campaign. If you're not on our newsletter, then you're very welcome, and do sign up at weownit.org.uk. And thank you for being here. We've got a really exciting lineup of speakers from different NHS campaigns. We Own It is just one NHS campaign, and we work with others. And we have some fantastic celebrities as well. And I will shortly hand over to John Bosco to talk about the plan for this evening. So great to see people already introducing themselves in the chat. And if you've just joined us, my name's Kat. I'm here with John Bosco, Matthew, and Imogen, as well as our brilliant speakers. And we will be joined by some very exciting celebrities tonight. So if you are here this evening, then I believe that you are a hero, because you have looked at this government, you've looked at the opposition, you've looked at the different political parties and what they're promising and how little so many of them are promising. And you've said, if they won't stand up for our NHS, you will. So you're here because you actually believe that we can do something about it. And you know that now is the time, after 14 years of this government underfunding our NHS, where to the point where it's on its knees, privatising it to within an inch of its life, and then blaming the staff for it, you're saying, no, you will not put up with that. And you will not let that just pass by at the next election. Because however bleak the political situation is, an election is the time when we have the most leverage. And we're so grateful that you're here to make the most of that leverage. And we're already starting to get results, and John Bosco will talk more about that. So the NHS pledge that we're asking all election candidates to sign is, we're saying they must reinstate the Health Secretary's legal duty to provide healthcare to all. We're asking all election candidates to commit to investing 40 billion more a year in our NHS, which would simply bring it up to par with other equivalent European countries. We're saying all politicians must promise to bring in outsourced services back into the NHS as contracts end. So they're insourcing back into the NHS, which should fit with other pledges that, for example, Labour is making around a wave of insourcing. And what we've got here is 3 very specific pledges. And the power of that is that we can pin politicians down. Is it a yes or is it a no? Is it a yes for one of those and a no for others? We want a yes or a no, and we'll accept nothing in between. And that will all be transparently on our website from now all the way until the next general election. So the power of that specificity is that it means we are shining a light on what every election candidate is doing, and we will be able to make available to people that information so they know in their constituency what their election candidates are saying and whether they are standing up for the NHS. It also means that political parties will compete with each other to show that they're standing up for the NHS. And that is the power of this. And we've found when we've done these kinds of campaigns before, when we were smaller than we are now, that it generates a huge amount of momentum because candidates have to be pinned down by the people who are deciding whether to vote for them. That is democracy. So, and the other thing is that even when politicians don't sign up to pledges, they hear it and they are given a headache about it, and they hear it. The health spokespeople of each party who've been contacted will hear from their election candidates around the country that you are contacting them, and that will force them to make decisions. So that is the power that you have. And we're so grateful that you're here today and standing up for our NHS. This has to be the election where politicians stand up for our NHS, and there's no way that we or you are going to let them get away with anything else. So on that note, I will hand over to John Bosco. We're going to keep the timetable very tight today. We want to let you go at 7 p.m. on the dot. So I will stop speaking now and I will hand over to John Bosco, but thank you for being here. I'm really excited about this campaign.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is John Bosco Mobo. I'm lead campaigner. We on it alongside Matthew Topham, who you might not get the opportunity to see today because he's running the tech on the back end. As Kat said, thank you very much for being here. And of course, even more importantly, for having the faith that people power can defeat the money of those who are able to spend with our politicians and those who believe that our NHS is standing in the way of their profiting from healthcare or from people's ill health. You're going to be hearing from a number of speakers tonight, some of whom are public figures that you know and love, but some of whom are people who campaign for our NHS on a day-to-day basis. Some of them work in the NHS, some of them use the NHS. And I mean, we all use the NHS, but you'll be hearing from somebody who spent a long time in an NHS waiting list this evening. So as not to spend too much time making a preamble, I'm going to introduce you to our first speaker, Holly Turner. Holly is the co-founder of NHS Workers Say No. She is an NHS nurse and she is a fierce campaigner for our NHS. And please do give a hearty, silent welcome to Holly. 1 second. I am going to unmute Holly. There she is.
Thank you. I didn't have the power to unmute myself, so thank you for doing that. Thank you for that introduction. Yeah, my name's Holly. I'm a registered learning disability nurse. I've worked in the NHS for over 15 years. I love my job. It's an absolute privilege to work with the children and families that I do. And I love nursing. It's a huge part of my life. My husband's also a nurse in the NHS, so we really do live and breathe it. But I would say that from the beginning of my life as a nurse, it's been quite clear to me how deeply Westminster politics do influence my ability to do that job that I trained to do. And I chose to become a nurse because I believed in treating people in a safe environment. But it's quite impossible to ignore now the brutality of the cuts to our services, which are inflicting harm, suffering, and actually sometimes death on the most vulnerable. Now, across the service, all staff, we're feeling the brunt of over 135,000 vacancies, which are a direct result of year on year of cuts to the pay and the workforce feeling ultimately undervalued by those in power. The increased privatisation is really leaving us struggling to provide collaborative care in what I would say are fragmented services and working in buildings which aren't really fit for purpose. Now, across the NHS, staff really have drawn their own conclusions about why we find ourselves where we do. And we've seen the only way to fight back to that is to mobilise. And as a result, what we've seen is the largest waves of strike action in history across the health service. And I want to say that on those strike days, public support really does mean anything, as none of us can do this fight and win it alone. Last year, we saw the government unveil their workforce plan, but we've got no confidence in this or an increase in training places without seriously addressing core reasons why applications to study nursing have dropped by a massive 30%, or why such a staggering amount of staff are leaving and we have the vacancies that we do. Now, the current government often claims they're putting more money into the NHS than ever, but that's only true if you ignore inflation, an ageing population, and increasing rates of ill health. Now, since 2010, this government's been underfunding the NHS, and there's of course been a sharp decline in performance precisely because of that sharp shortfall, which is why we have to demand our politicians are standing up for the health service and rejecting policies which support this managed decline. Now, I think we'll agree we didn't cause this mess. We certainly must not continue to pay for it. So we must fight for a fully funded, properly staffed health service, which is free at the point of access for all. And I'm so proud to speak at this event tonight because we do hold the power to make change for ourselves and future generations. So let's not slow down. Use every opportunity you have to organise, engage with your community, support the national pledge for the NHS, because when we unite, we really can do incredible things. And with an election around the corner, the time is now to make these demands. So this is about priorities, and surely a well-funded, valued and well-resourced NHS is the foundation of any decent society. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Holly. That was just amazing, and why you are the fighter that you are. And thank you so much for bringing that energy and reminding people that we hold the power, we can make change. We just have to take the step and take action. I'm going to introduce you now to Dr. Andrew Myerson. He is a junior doctor. He works in A&E. He comes to this issue with an experience that I think a lot of us don't have. He's an American and has experience of the American healthcare system. And he's been running around with his head on fire saying, you don't want to go there, right? So I introduce you to Andrew. Andrew, over to you. One second, somebody should unmute Andrew. Great.
We're good. Everything's good. Hi, everybody. I'm Andrew. I'm an A&E doctor in London. I'm originally from the States, and family and friends have been harmed by American healthcare, and so that's why I'm just so passionate about this. When I came to your country, I saw and I learned that the NHS was ranked the best healthcare system in the world 10 years ago, and I was just so impressed. And you know, in the 8.5 years that I've been here training to work in A&E, I have just seen the managed decline of the health system from a government that just does not care about it, doesn't care about patients and staff, and doesn't care about planning for the future. And we're seeing the consequences of that right now. The longest waiting list in NHS history. Patients are waiting longer than ever before to see their GP, to be seen in A&E, to get their cancer referral. And that's just unacceptable here in the second wealthiest country in the world. And you know, that's why, you know, we are seeing this historic strike action. I love fighting with Holly Turner and fighting with everybody on this call, all of the organizations with SOS NHS, and fully support this pledge for the NHS, because right now everybody's seeing what the consequences are of, you know, of this government's management of the NHS, mismanagement of the NHS, what they've done to our budgets, our staff, social care, the promises they've made that they've never kept. And so that's why we desperately need to fight for it, and now is the time. And so everybody on this call, everybody that has ever tweeted something, has ever spoken to a friend about it, has ever spoken to their colleagues, their family members at the dinner table, that is enhancing, you know, this campaign, that is pushing the fight forward. And you know, and you know, the nurses might go back on strike this year. Hopefully our doctor strike will be over. I'm exhausted right now. I'm on night shifts right now. And so I'm physically exhausted, but I'm just exhausted from a year of having to fight against a government that just doesn't value us, and that wants to turn your beloved NHS into an American privatized system. So that's why we have to keep fighting, and that's why, you know, our frontline staff, we appreciate so much the support that we have on strike days and regular days. You know, everybody that came onto this call and supporting this campaign, because as Holly said, none of us can do this alone. None of us can do this without a massive mobilization of support that we need from all of us. So thank you for your support, and continue to be really excited about see where this campaign is going to go. So good luck, and we're going to fight back, and this is the year we're going to do it.
Thank you so much, Andrew. A round of applause from everyone. And thank you very much for continuing to inspire us. We look at you, we don't see somebody that reminds us of something we don't want to achieve, but you constantly remind us that this is where I come from. We don't want to go there. And it's important for us to remember as well, Britain was once that country that didn't have an NHS, and we built the NHS to escape that. So really, really important that we fight for it. I'm going to introduce to you now Helen Field. Helen Field is an NHS campaigner, but he's speaking tonight as a patient who has endured an incredibly long wait in the NHS for a surgery. Helen, over to you now.
Thank you very much, John Bosco. I'm so proud to be here tonight. I've got an eye condition, a degenerative eye condition, and it's inherited. So there's nothing I can do about it. And I've waited 2 years, and I've actually had my left eye operated on. It involved having a corneal graft. I had it last November. I was so pleased to have it, and that was 3 months ago now. And I had an actual appointment with my consultant yesterday, and it's all gone really well. I'm so pleased. And I said, well, what's the chances of me having my other eye done? And I've got to wait another 2 years to have my right eye done as well. Well, I'm pleased to be on the waiting list, and I'm glad that I'm going to have it done. I'm really appreciative of that. But it just seems ridiculous that's going to be 4 years for an eye condition to be put right. And this is the same for everyone. When I was in the hospital yesterday, I was watching them all rushing around, all of the nurses, all of the people doing the eye tests. There was only one consultant on, and we were all there for about 3 hours, after the time of our allotted time for the appointment. And I said to one of the people that was doing some measurements, I said, it's quite obvious that you just haven't got enough staff. She said, yeah, tell me about it. And I said, and the only way to get more staff is to pay them more. And of course, she was looking, oh, it was lovely to hear you saying that as a patient. And we all know this. This is that we're losing our NHS staff in droves, doctors and nurses and midwives and all sorts of other people throughout the NHS, not just leaving to go and work abroad where they get more pay and they've got better conditions, because they just cannot stand the stress of it. I can't imagine how that stress must be when you know you can give your patients better care and you basically got your hands tied behind your back. So I am delighted about this initiative of We Own It. I think it's an absolutely terrific one. Please make sure you look on the website, because the way they've got the little tick lists for the 3 aspects of the pledge, and then there's a list of all the parties, and at the moment it's no for every single party that we've got in this country. Yes, our political system is broken, no doubt about it, but this is a perfect chance for us to really fight now, and not only telling these people who purport to represent us, although they don't. They're, we could hear Wes Streeting talking about the private medical companies that they're hopping into bed with, but we have to. I think generally the working class people in this country don't realise their combined power. It only takes literally just a million or so of us. It doesn't have to be everyone, and it would be enough to tip them into actually doing the action that we want. We Own It is a brilliant outfit. They have a talk every Thursday lunchtime, and this morning that's right. I'll stop now. Yes, We Own It. Go for it. Sign the pledge, everyone. Pass it on. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I don't know if I could have talked up We Own It that well. Thank you very much, Helen. And of course, you're absolutely right. We must all come together and join this fight, because that's the only way we're going to win. We've not updated the website yet, but a few candidates have already taken the pledge, and we hope that over the next few weeks we will be in a position to update the next few days to update the website. So when you go there, you see who's taking the pledge, who's not taking the pledge, and you're able to use that information to put pressure on them in your constituency. The next speaker we're going to hear from is Tom Griffith. He is the head of campaigns at our ally organization, Keep Our NHS Public. They're supporters of this campaign, and they are, in many ways, to my mind, one of the most important campaigning organizations in Britain. They are a voice for the NHS in the way that we are a voice for public service users. And they constantly move the conversation in the press and across the campaigning world. Over to you, Tom.
Thanks, John Bosco, and thanks to the other speakers that I've heard so far as well. You're all brilliant. And Helen made an absolutely important point about our power to force change, and we have to do that in a variety of different ways. I wanted to say a few things about the kind of solutions to the NHS crisis that we believe in, and how frightening it is that the solutions on offer by the mainstream political parties are so woefully inadequate. Worse than that, the solutions that will strengthen and deepen the crisis. We've just seen information that nearly 35,000 patients waited more than 12 hours on a trolley for a bed last year. And significantly, that's 3,000 times more than in 2011. That shows you the period of devastation that this Tory government has put us all through. And those statistics, of course, are real people. But the solutions on offer don't come anywhere near the mark. You've got Sunak and everyone else in the Conservative Party saying the current model is broken, demise, decline with the NHS is inevitable. You've got Wes Streeting, and he's saying some awful, frightening things. He's calling the NHS a leaky bucket. He's saying people shouldn't be nostalgic about it. He's saying it wastes billions a year. He's also blamed NHS staff for using the NHS winter crisis as an excuse for asking for more money. And he denies the fact that the NHS needs more money. We're very, very clear at Keep Our NHS Public. The NHS is not getting enough funding. We're getting 18% below the EU average spend, and in real terms budgets have been cut by 24%. These are real facts out there, easy to find. We also know that privatisation is not the answer. It makes things worse. Outsourcing is clearly associated with lower quality and less safe care. And I absolutely commend the work of We Own It, asking for these two key things, because these are the real causes of the current NHS crisis. Intentional defunding. Let's be absolutely clear about that. The Conservative Party knows exactly what it's doing. It knows how many people are dying as a result. Last year, at its worst, 500 people a week were dying, unnecessary and avoidable deaths. The Conservative Party politicians know this. They're okay with it. They sleep fine at night about it. Unfortunately, as we know, Starmer and Streeting are not giving the solutions that we want. So this pledge is vital. I urge you all to support it. I urge you all to look out for the work of the SOS NHS Coalition. I also urge you to look out for Keep Our NHS Public's new campaign, which is calling for a people's NHS. And what we mean by that is not a new thing. It's a thing we all know and love. It's a return to the founding principles, because the model of a universal NHS actually works. There's all kinds of proof about that. I urge you all to look for the 99% report, the Rational Policymakers Guide to the NHS. I also urge you to look for the British Medical Journal's recent report, and I'll give you the title of it, or of their findings, where they say the NHS founding principles are still appropriate today and a strong foundation for tomorrow. The British Medical Journal, by the way, unlike many of us, is not a political campaign, let alone a left-wing political campaign. It's a serious body that's done serious research on it. So we know we're right. So we push politicians to do what we need off from them with campaigns like this. We ask you to look out for the People's NHS stuff on the Keep Our NHS Public website, and we ask you to get on the streets and build in your workplaces, support strike, support Andrew and his colleagues, to support Holly and her colleagues, and to build a movement in your communities. If you're not in a Keep Our NHS Public group or a We Own It group, you should be. This is about work we can both do digitally online, but it's also about work we can do for real in our communities, feet on the streets. That's what's going to make a change. So thanks, guys. Good luck. And you've got all of our support. I'll stop there.
Thank you so much, Tom. I mean, what can I add to that? Amazing. Thank you very, very much. And people have been asking while you were speaking in the chat if you could put some Keep Our NHS Public links about the People's NHS, about the Rational Policy Makers Guide to the NHS, please do put them in the chat and we'll try and highlight them later on. So as we always do at We On It online rallies, and well, we have not done it at a physical one yet. We'll try sometime in the future. But as we always do, we try and mix you hearing from people, being inspired to take action, with you actually taking action in this very moment. So the next 3 minutes, I'm going to be asking you to do something right now. So Imogen, if you could pause the chat. Imogen is the AI that we're using to run the tech today. No, I'm joking. She's my brilliant colleague who's doing the tech. Imogen, there appears to be a problem with the link, because it should be possible for people to simply click on it there, and it opens up for them. Sorry, 1 second. There it is. Awesome. So the link is in the chat. The chat is paused, so nobody can post in it. The reason why that's the case is so it doesn't disappear. Please, could you click on that link right now? And I hope everyone can find the chat. If you can't, go to the bottom. You'll see the chat icon. Click on it. It opens up there where it says meeting chat. Click on the last link there, open it up. And if you have not taken action yet, can you take the next 2 minutes? I tried this before this meeting. It takes 1 minute to do this action, but we're giving you 2 minutes. Could you take the next 2 minutes to click on that link and send an email to the candidates, the parliamentary candidates in your area? And we've set it in such a way that if there are candidates in your area that have not yet been selected, or that they've been selected and don't have email addresses, we've made it so that your email redirects to the health spokesperson of that party. We want to make sure that they are all getting your message today. If you've already taken this action, please send it to 2 people. Think about 2 people that you know in the world who support our NHS, or even if, I think the vast majority of Britain supports our NHS, so you could take a gamble. Anybody you know is very likely to support the NHS. Send it to 2 people. We have until 6/28 to move on to the public figures portion of our meeting, where we'll hear from the public figures that are here in the meeting right now, but we've also received messages of support from a number of them that are unable to attend, who were really desperate to make sure that they were able to support this campaign and send a message to all of the people here who are taking action, who are running in the election this year, to say, take the pledge, it really matters. You have a few more seconds, and it's all right if you can't do the action right now. You could do it later on. We will be sending out an email to everybody who signed up for this call to provide you with the link so you could take action, and you could send it to 2 people afterwards. So don't be in a hurry to make sure that you do it now. And if you don't do it now, don't be annoyed, I guess. Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. We're going to get back onto the agenda. Imogen, if you have it queued up, the first video we have is a video from Stephen Fry, who is a supporter of our campaigning against privatization in the NHS, and he sent this message for us to play for everyone present, and especially for the candidates.
Hi there, this is Stephen Fry. Nothing new in praising our NHS. You know, in 2013, it was regarded as the best health service in the developed world. That's something we could all cheer about, because we've always known that it's one of the great ornaments of British public life. We just adore it. But, you know, in more recent years, the underfunding has been desperate. We now spend £40 billion less than France does, 73 billion less than Germany does. There's something very wrong here. I think it's worth fighting for it. I think it's worth stopping this underinvestment. I think it's worth standing up and declaring how much we value it. From a personal point of view, just September 2023, I had an accident, walked off stage, not knowing that it involved a 6-foot drop onto concrete and multiple fractures in my hip and leg and ribs. And I was taken by ambulance to the nearest NHS hospital, which is not regarded as one of the great ones. It was fantastic. I mean, the people were just incredible. Yes, some of the paint was peeling on the walls. Yes, it could do with some infrastructure love and probably, better hours for those junior doctors and nurses and other support staff. But nonetheless, these were wonderful things to experience, and I felt so proud and happy to be British, just for that silly reason that it was a marvellous thing that was unwinding for me and for all the other patients around me as they came into resus and into A&E, and all with their own problems, all needing attention. And yes, the waits are longer than they should be, but the spirit and the idea of the health service is as important and alive today as it ever was, unless we allow it to be run into the ground. So let's fight for it. Please take action now. It takes just 2 minutes to click the link above and send the We Own It letter to all parliamentary figures in your area. It really matters. Tell them that you demand that they take care of our NHS for the future of everyone in our country. Please do it now. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Imogen. The next message we have is from Lee Ridley, who many of us know as the Lost Voice guy. He wanted to make sure that you received this message today. Imogen, could you share his message?
Hello, it's Lee Ridley here, also known as the Lost Voice guy. As many of you know already, I'm a big supporter of the NHS. Mainly because I know what an important role they play in trying to keep us all healthy. I've had more than my fair share of treatment on the NHS over the years, and I'm very grateful that it exists. In fact, I'm surprised I don't have my own bed yet, but I don't think I'd be here at all without their help and support. That is why I am asking all parliamentary candidates at the next general election to commit to supporting £40 billion more per year for the NHS to catch up with the European average. I'm also calling for an end to privatisation and the extraction of profits from the NHS by shareholders. There isn't anything quite like the NHS in the world, so it is vital that it is kept safe.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Lee. Lee's manager is a superstar, by the way. We owe him everything for helping us get that message. So just in case he happens to hear this, thank you very much, Paul. The next message is a written message. Frankie Boyle could not record a video because I believe he's on tour at the moment. But he wanted to make sure that we got a message from him. So he sent us a written message, and I'll read it out on his behalf. I can't do his voice, unfortunately. The NHS has been strategically underfunded by successive governments to facilitate its gradual privatization. The NHS works best as a public service. It's a monopoly and functions best when able to take advantage of this. The NHS should be robustly protected from those who seek to turn medical needs into profit. There's a next slide. We only need to look to the US. We only need to look to the US to see the life-altering medical bills people can be landed with under a privatized system. Health provision should be entirely nationalized, and markets should have no place in something as important as healthcare provision. Frankie Boyle does not mince his words at all. So I think that's really, really powerful. Thank you so much, Frankie, for the message. And we have a message from Rankin, John Weddell Rankin, who is a celebrity photographer. I first heard about him when I was watching an ITV interview. He photographed the Queen for her, I believe, her Golden Jubilee. I thought, this is a guy that seems to care about the NHS. I'm going to reach out to him, and he's been very, very supportive since then. He said, it's little wonder that the NHS is the pinnacle of British public life when we all have a story of how it saved our lives or the lives of one of our loved ones. As a publicly run, publicly funded service, it does this with no thought of private gain, but for the benefit of all. Sadly, creeping privatization and underfunding have left it in the most perilous state in its history. After it has done so much for us, this election year, it is vital that we all stand up for it. I think there's a second page. That's why I'm calling on all of you to contact the candidates for parliament in your local village, town, or city, asking them to make the pledge for the NHS. If tens of thousands of us make this ask, our politicians will be forced to respond, either taking all or some of the pledges or exposing themselves to criticism by failing to stand up for our proudest institution. This is an incredibly powerful action. Please do your part for our NHS. Another really powerful message. Thank you so much, Rankin, for the message. And finally, another video from Rosie Holt. A lot of you will know her as the comedian who skewers terrible politicians on social media. You're going to like what she added at the end if you're a follower of hers on Twitter. Here's the message from Rosie.
I always remember when my friend was in America and he got a headache, so he went to the pharmacy and they gave him something over the counter that you would never get given over here, and it gave him such extreme stomach pains that he collapsed on the street and someone had to call an ambulance and he went to hospital. Anyway, my friend was fine, but his bank balance wasn't. Not only did he have to pay for treatment, but he also had to pay for the surprisingly expensive 5-minute ambulance ride to the hospital. Now, I often think of this story because I think we're so lucky in this country that however ill you get and all the stress and misery that can bring, at least you don't have to worry about financial bankruptcy as well. Our NHS is in trouble and it needs our help. It takes only a few minutes to write to your MP and demand they help our NHS with a We Own It letter. The NHS has been misused and underfunded by governments for years now. So let's send a clear message to our politicians that they must pledge for our NHS if we are to vote for them. By the way, the MP that I play, she definitely would not be for our NHS and she's awful.
Oh, amazing. Thank you so much, Rosie, for that. Amazing. So if you have not, there are a few people in the chat who are experiencing difficulties sending the email action. We're not sure exactly why that's happening right now, but please don't be deterred. Send it to people. We're going to send this out and make sure that it's properly working, hopefully, before we send out the link to you again. But do send it out to friends, family, co-workers, everyone. The next, we're down to the last two speakers, so you'll be finished soon. The next speaker is Ben Bailey-Smith. You'll be forgiven if you do not know who that is, because almost nobody calls him that. He's called Doc Brown. He's an actor, a comedian, a musician. My colleague told me earlier that she loves him from Law and Order UK. Over to you, Ben. Thank you so much for being here and for offering your support for the campaign.
Thanks, John. And I'm glad to hear it wasn't just me with the postcode thing. I thought they were being anti-Halsden for a minute. I'm very bored of that. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to know where to start, but I'll try and keep it as brief as possible, which is difficult when it comes to this subject. But yeah, when my brother was 9 years old, he was hit by a 6-wheeler lorry, and he was airlifted to the Royal London. My mum wasn't around because she was training to be a family therapist on the NHS, which he still is today. His life was saved that night. He spent 9 months in hospital. The NHS helped him to walk again, gave him his confidence back, rebuilt his body. It's phenomenal what they've given me. My daughters were both born at UCH. My youngest daughter was delivered by the same midwife that delivered my wife, which gives you an idea of the dedication that some of these people have. My sister-in-law, Annie Ainger, is a senior anaesthetist at the Royal London now. My mum retired 7 years ago, 2017, and she still works 2 days a week delivering therapy, family therapy for the NHS, just because of the shortfall. She's just helping out. Like, this is the nature of the people that we are dealing with here, the people that serve us. I mean, it's ridiculous the lack of respect these people are given by the people that have all the power to not just give them that respect, because they don't want hand claps, they don't want lovey-dovey messages. And as beautiful as this rally is and the speeches are, it's not concrete. What needs to be concrete is this pathetic excuse for a government standing up and delivering what everybody knows needs to be delivered. And I was raised a red. I was raised to hate the Tories. I'm sorry if there's any on this rally. But now I'm genuinely concerned that with the end of the Tories, Starmer is not going to deliver what needs to be delivered, because there's this creeping thing, Frankie Boyle mentioned it, that we know is happening, and you can't pull the wool over our eyes because we're not idiots. And I'm sick of it, because the NHS has given me so much, and I feel like I've given it nothing in return apart from this speech, you know. And this is our chance to do something about it. And for me personally, as a person with a following that people listen to, I get very concerned about talking about subjects that are so polarizing, like the war in the Middle East, in the Congo, and, you know, everything that's going on in the world that seems to split people down the middle. This one is easy for me. I don't see how you can be on the other side. These are the lives of all British people that we're talking about, regardless of what you believe in. It's irrelevant, you know? So for me, support the pledge, work out how to get your postcode in that application, and let's move forward. And I hope there's a day where millions of us can do this together on the streets and really let the people in power know how we feel.
Thank you so very much. Thank you very much, Ben. I mean, how can I top that? Thank you so much. You've given us so much there. And thank you for feeling comfortable to talk about your personal experience with the NHS as well. I mean, that has been, for me, very inspiring. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Ken Loach. We all know him. We all love him. The film director behind I, Daniel Blake, and a bunch of other, I think, award-winning, fairly historic movies. Over to you, Ken.
Thanks, John. It's been a pleasure to hear everyone, and people have spoken very eloquently about the crisis in the National Health Service and the terrible things that are happening to it, and which we all know about. I was 12 when it was founded by Nye Bevan and the Attlee government, and I thought I'd try and give a little perspective on what's happened and what is happening. The founding principles have been spoken about, was that it was ours, it belonged to the people. People contributed according to their ability, and were able to take according to their medical needs. And everyone who worked there had a direct contract with the National Health Service. The problem started seriously when Margaret Thatcher took power in 1979 and decided to, in the interest of business, to reduce the power of the unions and make labour cheaper. It culminated in the defeat of the miners, which we commemorate this year and need to learn a lesson from. And many of the public services were then taken into, sold or practically given away to business and the Tory friends in the city. And that took over the next decade. The National Health Service was special, and their tactics there has been the salami tactics, slice by slice, services outsourced. And they began with cleaning and catering. And why do they do it? Well, it's a source of profit. And private health companies, like all companies, depend on profit. That's their reason for being. That's their priority. That means reducing the cost of labour. That means fewer workers. The ones you keep, you pay less. And if you can, you give them job insecurity so that they can be dismissed with no consequences to their employer. Of course, the services will deteriorate. That's inevitable. But that's not the name of the game. It's not about providing good services. It is consciously about giving profit to private health companies. And that has brought us to where we are. The policy was continued by Blair. And now both parties are committed to the continued privatisation of the health service. And that's been one of the great disasters, really, of the way our politics has gone. People have said that, I mean, we know what the Tories will do. People have written books about, when they talk about reform, they mean allowing private health companies, probably mostly the American health companies, to take the work that is comparatively secure, the procedures that they can make quick money from, that is outsourced. New developments will be run by private health companies, and of course the party that used to be known as Labour is now well on that track. Others have spoken about Streeting's welcoming of private health companies and talking about their role, and it's clear that they will play an increasingly strong and important role in our health. And it is a disaster, and the people who work in the health service know it. The fight back by the unions has been brilliant. But one thing I do wish is that when they're getting this massive public support, when they're doing so well, and we take our hats off to the organised struggle, I do wish they would also say the root of this cause is privatisation and outsourcing and subcontracting, because that's the core. That's why I welcome this pledge, even though we know it's a rhetorical question for most MPs. They can't sign it. Well, they're liars if they do. So that's really important. The unions put forward these claims. We support the campaign to keep our NHS public. This campaign, which I'm pleased to support. There are other great campaigners like Bob Gill, Dr. Bob Gill, is great. Made a great study of the consequences of privatisation and the detailed way in which we are being robbed of this, what we used to call the jewel in the crown. Nye Bevan said at the beginning, when in the 40s, he said the health service, the National Health Service, will last as long as people are ready to fight for it. Well, we know its destruction is not an accident. It's not about money, their failure to provide money. It's an ideological, intentional destruction to transfer this source of profit to private health companies. And that's what we're fighting. That's what we're fighting. Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell had a program that would have cut back privatisation. And of course, we know what happened to them. They were what one journalist called the victims of political assassination. Now, Bevan said, it will last as long as people will fight for it. For God's sake, let's fight for it. Thanks, John.
Thank you so very much, Ken. And thank you to all our speakers and everyone who has made this evening what I think is, I helped organize it, so I can't rate it as a success, but I'm sure everyone feels it's a success. And Ken, Ben, and all of the other speakers, all of those who sent us videos, all of their staff who worked behind the scenes, all of Ken and Ben's staff as well who made this possible. Thank you so much. We could not have put this together without you. One last thing that I wanted to make sure to remind you of. how we're going to win this campaign. Tomorrow morning, I want to send out emails to hundreds of organizations across the country and say to them, here is an important campaign. Can you get it to your people? Our goal is to spread the word layer by layer, organization to organization, those organizations to their people. And your role in this is not just to take the action, really, really important, but if you're in this call, it means you're really, really excited about doing something about this fight. So what we want you to do is get this message to as many people as you can. Take action and get, I said 2 people because it's always easier to say a low number, but you can make it 100 people. Somebody got in touch with me today to say she sent the action to over 200 people. Whatever you can do, it can be 1 person, it can be 2 people, but if you can do a lot more, that's how this campaign is going to mobilize the tens of thousands of people needed for it to have an impact. Thank you so very much for being here. And if Kat does not want to say a final goodbye, I am going to say solidarity and have a good evening, everyone. And Kat wants to come in.
Just wanted to say thank you so much. I was really moved by all of the speeches, and I'm sure that people feel the same. So thank you, especially to our celebrities who are boosting the profile of this campaign and made us get media coverage today. Ben Bailey-Smith, Doc Brown, otherwise known as, and Ken Loach. It's a real honour to have you on this call, and we're absolutely thrilled about it. And you're boosting this campaign by your presence and by your amazing words, which are so powerful. Thank you very much to all of the speakers from earlier in the call, and I'd just like to highlight the support that we've got from organisations for this campaign. So it's backed by Keep Our NHS Public, it's backed by Just Treatment, Doctors for the NHS, 38 Degrees, the National Pensioners Convention, and that list is growing. And as John Bosco said, we are getting candidates signed up already. So everybody on this call who's making this campaign happen, whatever you're doing, whether you've clicked send on that email, whether you're giving your time tonight, which we're so grateful for, whether you're contacting friends and family, just 2 tonight would be amazing. We are going to build momentum for this, and we have backup plans and backup plans in case this first level of the campaign doesn't achieve what we want, because we're not giving up on this. And as Ken said, our NHS will last as long as we have folk with the faith to fight for it, and you are those folk, and this is the fight, and we're so grateful to have you with us. Thank you so much, everyone. Solidarity.
Solidarity, everyone. Have a good evening.
Solidarity all.